When I was 17 years old, my family vanished without a word. One Friday afternoon, I walked home from school in Portland, Oregon, thinking about finals, college applications, the usual things teenagers obsess over. The sun was already dipping behind the neighborhood trees as I walked up the cracked driveway of our rental house. Everything looked strangely still, like someone had pressed pause on the world. When I opened the front door, the air felt wrong. Empty. Too quiet. I stepped into the kitchen and froze. The table was gone. The chairs were gone. The fridge was gone. Every cabinet hung open. Hollow. My chest tightened as I stumbled across the room. Sitting on the counter, where the microwave used to be, was a single note. Just one sentence, written in my mom's handwriting. "You'll figure it out." That was it. No explanation, no signature, no directions. Just, "You'll figure it out." At 17 years old. I remember leaning over the counter, gripping it until my knuckles turned white. I read the note over and over again, trying to make the words rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Something with love in it. Something with mercy. But there was nothing. I thought maybe it was a joke. Maybe they'd come back in an hour. Maybe they were testing me, punishing me, something. It took me 3 days to accept the truth. My parents and my older brother Caleb had packed up everything they owned and moved away. Without telling me. Without waiting. Without saying goodbye. They moved 2 states away to Colorado, and they didn't even bother leaving me a sandwich in the fridge. I wish I could say I didn't see it coming. But if I'm honest, the signs were always there. When I was 13, I had baked my mom a birthday cake entirely on my own. I remember proudly carrying it into the living room, a lopsided chocolate cake with sprinkles. I'd followed YouTube tutorials, measuring everything carefully. Diane, my mother, barely looked up from the TV before saying, "It looks clumpy." That was her thank you. When I was 15, I spent hours helping my brother Caleb study for his algebra finals. He passed, because of me. But when he walked out of his room afterward, he slammed the door and called me a know-it-all. When I was 16, I gave my entire part-time paycheck to my dad, Robert, because he said we were behind on bills. A month later, when I gently brought up that I'd helped, he exploded. "You think that makes you useful? You're useless, Aria. Always have been." Useful, but never loved. A week after that note, the landlord came by. He looked at me with confused pity and said, "Your parents terminated the lease early. You've got 1 week to move out." 1 week. I packed what little I owned, a backpack of clothes, my school notebooks, and a thrifted blanket, and bounced between friends' couches until the generosity dried up. After 3 nights, I ran out of options. So I spent the last of my savings, $47, renting a small storage unit on the edge of town. That cold aluminum box became my bedroom. I laid a sleeping bag on the concrete floor and used a jacket as a pillow. At night, I'd curl up in that echoing unit, listening to the hum of fluorescent lights outside, trying not to cry loud enough for someone to hear. In the mornings, I snuck into the YMCA to shower. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner were spoonfuls of peanut butter from a jar. I applied for jobs on library computers and pretended everything was fine. Eventually, a small diner on the east side of Portland hired me for the night shift. The manager, a tough woman named Vera, paid me cash under the table until I could get my papers sorted. She wasn't warm, but she was fair. And one night, when I nearly passed out from exhaustion, she let me sleep in the break room for an hour. That small kindness felt like someone handing me the world. For a year, I just survived. Only survived. And then, things finally shifted. A regular customer at the diner, Mr. Langford, a quiet, sharply dressed older man, offered me a temporary job organizing paperwork at his small accounting office. The pay was 3 times what I made serving tables. That one job led to another, and another. And soon I was doing administrative contracting work for 6 clients. I discovered something about myself during those years. I was resilient, smart, capable, driven. By 22, I was freelancing full-time. By 25, I launched my own consulting firm out of a foldable table and a borrowed laptop. By 27, I had 5 contractors and real office space in downtown Portland. By 29, I became a millionaire. Not influencer millionaire, not fake guru millionaire, but actual wealth with a retirement account, health insurance, no debt, and a paid-off apartment. The day my bank app hit 7 figures, I sat on my kitchen floor and cried. Not because of the money, but because I'd done it without the people who were supposed to love me, without any safety net, without any family. My parents didn't try to contact me once. Not once. For 12 entire years. And then everything changed. Last month, a podcast interviewed me about surviving family abandonment. The episode went viral. Over 1 million views in 4 days. My inbox flooded with messages from listeners who felt seen. But one message stood out. Subject line: "You're still our daughter." It was from Diane. No apology. Just a paragraph about hearing my podcast and wanting to talk. Then another email came, from Caleb. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" I stared at those emails for hours. For the first time in a long time, I didn't know what to do. For 10 days, I left those emails sitting unread in my inbox. Sometimes I opened them, sometimes I closed them without reading. Sometimes I stared at the screen until the words blurred together. My therapist, Dr. Harlow, told me, "Aria, take a week. Don't react, don't rush. Just feel." So I did. I went to the gym, ate meals with friends, worked overtime to distract myself. But those messages lived in the back of my mind like ghosts knocking on a locked door. Eventually, I decided to respond to Caleb, but not to our mother. I typed 2 simple sentences. "It's been 12 years. What changed?" He replied within an hour. He said he'd listened to my podcast and realized the truth of what they'd done. Said he was only 15 when they left and had no say. Said he'd always wondered about me, looked me up online sometimes, wished he had reached out sooner. Said he was proud of me. I didn't buy it. Not entirely. If he cared, why wait until I was publicly successful? Until strangers praised me? Until my story went viral? So I asked in that. He replied again, longer this time. He wrote about money problems, about how our parents' business failed, how his wife, Sophie, was pregnant again, how medical bills were piling up, how they were barely hanging on. My stomach twisted. There it was, the real reason. They saw what I'd built, and now they wanted a piece. A week passed without me replying. I needed space, clarity. Then my mom emailed again, this time attaching photos. Me as a baby, messy curls and frosting on my cheeks. Me at 5 years old, building a sandcastle. Me and Caleb building a snowman in Oregon. Me on my first day of school with a backpack twice my size. Images from a life that felt like it belonged to a stranger. At the bottom she wrote, "We made mistakes. We want to make amends." I didn't believe her. Not for a second. But I showed everything to Dr. Harlow. She said it was my choice, reconciliation, distance, or something in between, but reminded me, you don't owe them anything. In the end, I decided to meet with Caleb. Just him. Not my parents. Not yet. We chose a coffee shop in Denver, halfway between Fort Collins, where he lived, and my apartment in Portland. I booked a flight, checked into a hotel, and practiced breathing in the mirror before leaving. I almost canceled 3 times in the Uber. At exactly 2 p.m., I walked inside and saw him instantly. Caleb. Older, heavier, receding hairline, but his eyes were the same ones that used to glare at me across the dinner table when we were kids. He stood when he saw me, awkward, uncertain. I didn't hug him. We sat across from each other like strangers forced into a group project neither wanted to do. We talked about the weather, my flight, his drive. Nothing real. Then he finally cracked. His voice broke. Aria, I'm sorry. I was just a kid. I didn't know they planned to leave you. I watched him carefully. I'd been fooled before, manipulated before, loved only when convenient before. I asked him the question that had haunted me for 12 years. Why me? Why was I the one left behind? He sighed, staring into his coffee. They always said you were the strong one, independent. They convinced themselves you'd be fine without us. Ridiculous, cruel, absurd. I told him about the storage unit, about eating peanut butter for weeks, about showering at the YMCA, about collapsing from exhaustion at 17 years old. His face collapsed. I didn't know, he whispered. They told me you wanted to stay behind, that you had a plan, that you chose to live with a friend's family. Lies. All lies. We talked for almost 2 hours. He showed me pictures of Sophie and Evie, their 3-year-old daughter. He told me about his accounting job. He didn't ask for money. Not directly. When we finally left, he hugged me. I didn't hug back. My arms stayed at my sides. Back in my hotel, I called Dr. Harlow. She listened, then said, Caleb feels remorseful, but he's still centering himself. He's explaining, not accountable. She was right. He had been 15, not helpless, not mute, old enough to email me, call me, check in. But he didn't. That night, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered without thinking. It was Diane, my mother. Her voice was older, thinner, raspy. She cried the moment she heard me speak. Oh, Aria, my baby girl. I'm so proud of you. I always knew you'd succeed. It was all praise. Empty, sugary praise. No substance. No ownership. When she paused, I asked again, why me? Why did you leave me? Her answer? We couldn't afford to feed 3 people. We knew you'd survive. We thought social services would give you a better family. I hung up on her, blocked her, threw my phone onto the hotel bed, and screamed into a pillow. I cried until my ribs hurt. The next morning, I woke up to an email from Robert, my father. 12 years of silence, and now he had the audacity to write, no apology, no regret, no acknowledgement of abandoning me. Instead, he listed their medical bills, their debts, their struggle, their eviction notice, and at the end asked, can you help us financially? I forward the email to Dr. Harlow. Subject. And there it is. She called me immediately. We talked for an hour about boundaries, trauma responses, forgiveness versus reconciliation, and my right to say no. By Monday morning, I made a decision. I emailed Caleb. I'm willing to explore a relationship with you, not them. No money, no loans, no financial support. And I need them to take responsibility before I even consider speaking to them. He responded instantly. I'm disappointed. They need your help. Family supports each other. You're being selfish. My childhood guilt buttons activated like alarms in my chest. I didn't reply. Instead, I booked a flight to Bali and left. I needed distance. I needed perspective. I needed to breathe. 3 days later, Caleb left a voicemail apologizing for his anger. He blamed stress, promised he'd respect my boundaries, said he still wanted a relationship on my terms. I wasn't sure if he meant it or if he was switching tactics. But I decided to give him one more chance. A cautious chance. When I flew home 2 weeks later, sunburned and calmer, I found 6 emails from my dad, each more desperate, each more demanding, each more manipulative. I didn't read them. I also found a message from Caleb. Can we talk? We scheduled a phone call. He told me he'd started therapy, said he'd been reflecting on our childhood, sounded calmer. Then he dropped the real reason for the call. Our parents are visiting next weekend. Maybe you could meet them? Just for an hour? I shut down instantly. I'm not ready for that, Caleb. He pushed. Not aggressively, just insistently. When I went quiet, he backed off. After the call, I phoned Dr. Harlow. Emergency session. She helped me understand. I wasn't afraid of seeing them because I hated them. I was afraid because some part of me still wanted their approval, still wanted them to love me, still wanted to be enough. I broke down in her office for almost an hour. The next day, Caleb texted again. Mom cried all night after I told her you wouldn't meet them. Dad says they might drive to Oregon anyway. I panicked, blocked his number, told my assistant I was working from home for the week, avoided my doorbell, checked my peephole 10 times a day. And then on Wednesday, everything escalated. My building's doorman called. There's a couple downstairs asking for you. They won't give their names. My heart stopped. It was them. I knew it. My parents had come to Portland. I told him, do not let them up. 5 minutes later, another unknown number rang. I ignored it. A voicemail came through. Robert's voice. Aria, we drove 8 hours to see you. You're being childish. We deserve a chance to explain. I deleted it, turned off my phone, locked every door, and sat on the floor, shaking. After deleting my father's voicemail, I sat with my back against the wall, knees pulled to my chest, shaking so hard I could barely breathe. I wasn't 17 anymore, alone in a storage unit. But my body didn't know that. My body thought I was right back there. Eventually, I managed to call Dr. Harlow. My voice was barely a whisper. They're here. She didn't sound surprised, worried, but not surprised. Aria, this is harassment. You don't open the door. You don't engage. She told me to stay inside, to keep the doors locked, to alert building security. Her calmness helped, just a little. But the next day, things got worse. They came to my door. Thursday morning, I woke to loud pounding on my apartment door. I froze in bed. Bam, bam, bam. "Aria, please," my mother's voice cried. "We just want to talk." Then my father's voice. "Open the door. We know you're in there." I crept to the peephole. There they were, Diane and Robert, standing in the hallway like they owned the building, as if they had any right to be near me after what they'd done. I didn't say a word. I backed away from the door, sat on the floor, waited. After 10 minutes of pleading, knocking, guilt-tripping, they finally left. I called building security immediately. "Do not let them up again. Ever." The guard asked if I needed the police. I said no, but I should have said yes. The manipulation begins. That afternoon, I got an email from Caleb. His tone was different now, furious. "I can't believe you humiliated Mom and Dad like that. They drove all this way for you. They're staying in a motel they can't afford because they're desperate. Sophie needs surgery. We were hoping you'd help." No apology, no empathy, just guilt and obligation and manipulation, their specialty. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked a flight to Portland's East Side, then quickly changed my mind and booked a ticket to a friend's place in Seattle instead. Less predictable. Safer. I threw clothes into a suitcase, ready to flee again. Just like when I was 17. But then the doorman called. "There's a woman downstairs saying she needs you. Says she's having a medical issue." My heart lurched. My mother. I told him, "Call an ambulance if she needs help, but I'm not coming down." He sounded unsure, but he complied. An hour later, I cautiously took the elevator down to head for the airport. The lobby was empty. The doorman pulled me aside. "The ambulance took her. Chest pains. She insisted I tell you which hospital." I cut him off. "I don't want to know." The heart attack. At the airport, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mom had a heart attack. It was Caleb. He was crying. "It's your fault. You stressed her out. She's in surgery. This is on you." I hung up on him. Then I called Dr. Harlow, my therapist, from the gate. Her voice was firm, unmoving. "Aria, listen to me. You are not responsible for your mother's health. This is manipulation. Get on your plane." So I did. A safe weekend, or so I thought. I spent the weekend in Seattle with my friend Rachel, one of the only people who helped me when I was homeless. She was there when I slept in a storage unit. She brought me hot food. She never asked for anything. When I told her about my parents showing up, she was livid. They don't deserve a second of your time. She poured me a glass of wine and said it again. Not after what they did. For the first time all week, I felt safe. Sunday night, my dad emailed. "Your mother is stable. She'll be released Tuesday. She wants to see you. Haven't you punished us enough?" Punished them? They abandoned me at 17, not the other way around. I showed Rachel. She rolled her eyes so dramatically, I laughed for the first time in days. "Classic emotional blackmail," she said. She was right. Flowers at my door. I flew home Monday. When I reached my apartment, there were flowers waiting outside my door. A huge bouquet. The card read, "Please call us. We're staying at the Redwood Inn until Wednesday." The flowers went straight into the trash chute. Tuesday morning, another unknown number texted me. A picture of my mother in a hospital bed. Pale. Frail. Message. She might not have much time left. Do you really want to live with regret? I blocked the number instantly. I messaged Dr. Harlow again. She recommended taking a break from social media, changing my phone number, staying with someone I trust. I agreed. Started packing again. But then, my sister-in-law shows up. My doorman called. There's a young woman downstairs asking for you. She has a small child with her. Says she's your sister-in-law. My pulse spiked. They brought a child? Why? After a moment, I told him to send her up. If this turned ugly, I wanted to see it with my own eyes. The woman who knocked on my door wasn't threatening. She looked exhausted. Dark circles, a toddler sleeping on her shoulder. I'm Sophie, she said softly. Caleb's wife. I let her in. She placed her daughter, Evie, 3 years old, on the couch gently. Then we sat at the kitchen table. She inhaled shakily. I came alone because I didn't want drama. I only learned about you 3 years ago. Caleb told me you had abandoned the family. I believed him, until I heard your podcast. I said nothing, just watched her. She continued. I confronted him, hard, and he finally admitted the truth. I'm horrified, Aria, truly. Sophie wasn't emotional in a manipulative way. She was genuinely distraught. Then she dropped the real bomb. Your parents have been telling everyone that you stole money from them before running away. My stomach dropped. They posted online for years, claiming they hired private investigators to find you. She slid her phone across the table. Posts, archived, screenshots, years of lies. Prayers needed. Our daughter Aria ran away. She took our savings. We're searching shelters. She's mentally unstable. All fabricated. All of it. I felt dizzy. Sophie sighed. I'm pregnant again. I want my kids to know their aunt someday. But only if you want that. And only on your terms. When she finally left, I sat in silence for nearly an hour, processing everything. Then I called Dr. Harlow again. She said something that stuck. Abusers rewrite history. They need to believe they're the victims. I finally understood. My parents weren't trying to reconnect. They were trying to save face. The threats begin. That night, I received an email from my father. It was unhinged. Threatening to sue me for defamation. Claiming they had proof I stole from them. Saying I must take my podcast interview down. Demanding a public apology. Asking for money again. I forwarded it to my lawyer, Attorney Whitman. He called immediately. This is nothing but intimidation. Don't respond. I'll handle everything. He was calm, confident, used to dealing with unstable family situations. But even he said, document absolutely everything. The next day, I received a frantic voicemail from Caleb. Mom and Dad are furious. They're saying horrible things about Sophie now. I'm scared they're going to do something desperate. He begged me to call back, but only from Sophie's phone, not his. I called Attorney Whitman again. He suggested meeting with Caleb and Sophie in a public place, with him present. So we did. The meeting, and the truth. We chose a restaurant near Whitman's office. Caleb looked terrible, pale, jittery, exhausted. Sophie had a fresh bruise on her arm she tried to hide. As soon as we sat down, everything spilled out. How my parents had lived off Caleb for years, taken his money constantly, moved in and out of his house, controlled his finances, watched his kids but criticized Sophie's parenting, emotionally manipulated him, lied about me for over a decade. Then Sophie spoke up. Robert grabbed me. That's how I got the bruise. My stomach turned. Caleb said he kicked them out after that. They'd been in a motel since. Talking about me. Talking about ruining my career. Talking about getting money from me no matter what. Whitman asked legal questions. Bank accounts, titles, passwords. Caleb answered everything. When the meeting ended, I felt empty, drained. But for the first time, clear. Caleb wasn't innocent, but he was trapped too. A different kind of victim. The break-in. The next morning, Sophie called me sobbing. They broke into our house. Police were already on the way. I rushed over. Drawers pulled out, papers everywhere. Evie's baby photos missing. Caleb's laptop gone. Important documents stolen. A note left behind. Family matters should stay in the family. Whitman arrived, furious. He took photos, wrote notes, called the detective he knew personally. This is serious, he told us. This isn't just manipulation, it's escalation. That night, I insisted Caleb and Sophie come to stay at my apartment. It was safer. My building had security and staff who already knew the situation. We ordered takeout. Evie played quietly. Sophie folded laundry. Caleb sat staring at nothing. It wasn't the family I was born into, but it felt more real than any family dinner I'd ever had growing up. The restraining orders. The next morning, Whitman called. I filed emergency restraining orders, court hearing Monday. You all need to stay together until then. We agreed. My apartment, once silent and minimalistic, became a refuge. Evie's toys scattered across the floor, Sophie cooking to calm her nerves, Caleb working remotely from my guest room, laughter mixed with anxiety, fear mixed with comfort. It felt like something I'd never had. A chosen family. One that wanted me. One that didn't disappear. But then... the flowers. Again. My doorman called. Another delivery, flowers. Card says... I told him to read it. He hesitated. Then he read, "We know where you all are. This isn't over." I told him to refuse delivery, alert security, call the police if needed. But I didn't tell Caleb or Sophie. They were overwhelmed enough. That night, while everyone slept, I cried quietly at the kitchen table. Relieved we were finally taking legal steps. Terrified of what my parents would do next. The car window. 2 days before the hearing, Caleb went to check on his car in the garage. A brick smashed through the windshield. No note. No need for one. We all knew who it was. Security footage showed a man in a baseball cap, face turned away. Not proof, but enough to make me afraid of every shadow. Another police report, another addition to our growing evidence pile. Court day. Monday morning, we dressed carefully, professional, calm, prepared. Outside the courthouse, I felt eyes on me. I turned. There they were, Diane and Robert, standing 20 feet away, just staring, not approaching, not speaking, just watching. In court, Whitman presented everything. Emails, threats, break-in, the brick, the note, the stalking, the abandonment history. My parents denied everything, said I was exaggerating, said they were loving parents trying to repair the family, said they would never harm their grandchildren, The judge wasn't buying it, especially not when asked directly, "Did you leave your minor daughter alone at 17?" Robert mumbled something about hardship. The judge cut him off. Her voice turned icy. "I am granting the restraining orders. 3 years. No contact. No approaching homes or workplaces. No third-party messages. Any violation equals immediate arrest." My parents looked stunned. For the first time in their lives, they faced consequences. As we walked out, my mom whispered, "Aria." I didn't turn around. I kept walking. For the first time, I felt free. But it wasn't over. Outside, Caleb hugged me. A real hug. "I'm sorry," he said, "for everything." I believed him. For once, I believed him. We were walking to our cars when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One photo. Evie, playing in the backyard of her friend's house, taken from a distance. The message below. "This isn't over yet." The moment I saw the photo of Evie, my 3-year-old niece, playing in her friend's backyard, I felt everything inside me freeze. Not fear, not panic. Something colder. A realization. They were watching us. Watching her. Watching a child who had nothing to do with their madness. I didn't show the picture to Caleb or Sophie right away. Not yet. Not until I spoke to someone who could guide me. So I called Attorney Whitman, my lawyer. He answered on the first ring. "What happened?" I forwarded him the photo. There was a long pause on the line. Then he said, "Aria, this is no longer just harassment. This is a direct threat. You need to call the police. Now." My hand shook as I dialed. The police arrived within 20 minutes. 2 officers came into my apartment, and I showed them everything: my phone, the message, the picture. One of the officers, a woman named Officer Ramirez, looked sickened. "You did the right thing reporting this. This is dangerous behavior." The second officer added, "Whoever took that photo was close, maybe from a car window." Cold swept through me. Had they followed us after court? Had they been driving behind us the whole time? For hours after the police left, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the message. This isn't over yet. I wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to protect them all: Caleb, Sophie, Evie, even the unborn baby. But more than anything, I wanted this to end. For good. I finally show them the photo. When Caleb and Sophie came back from the grocery store, Evie asleep in her arms, I knew it was time. We sat in the living room. I handed Caleb my phone. His entire body stiffened. Then he whispered, "Oh God." Sophie covered her mouth, tears immediately pooling in her eyes. That's our friend's yard. How did they find that?" Caleb stood up and paced. "Our parents are unwell," he said, voice breaking. "They've gone too far. We need to get out of here. We can't stay in this apartment. We can't stay in Portland." He was shaking. Sophie had her head in her hands. Evie slept peacefully, unaware that her own grandparents were threatening her safety. I took a deep breath. "No one is going anywhere," I said softly. "We're going to do this the right way." Dr. Harlow put her on speaker, explained everything. Her voice, calm as always, filled the room. "Aria, listen. All of you listen. This is a crisis situation, but you're not powerless. You've already taken the biggest step, legal protection. Now you need a safety plan." She walked us through it. Notify Evie's daycare. Notify local police. Strengthen home security. Document everything. Stay together until police say otherwise. No social media posts. Vary travel routes. Don't answer unknown numbers. Keep emergency bags ready. Her voice grounded us. Sophie cried quietly the whole time. When we hung up, the room was silent. But the silence wasn't fear anymore. It was resolve. A visit from a detective. The next morning, a detective from the police department, Detective Linwood, came to speak with us. Older guy, calm, sharp eyes. He studied the photo of Evie for a long time. "This is predatory behavior," he finally said. "And it's escalating. These people don't respect boundaries. They don't respond to legal consequences. That makes them dangerous." Caleb swallowed hard. Sophie squeezed his hand. Detective Linwood continued. "You mentioned your parents are staying at the Redwood Inn? I'll send a patrol to speak with them. If they deny involvement, fine, but they now know they're being watched by us." It was the first time I felt a sliver of relief. Someone was finally stepping between us and them. The motel incident. That afternoon, while we tried to distract ourselves by making lunch, Detective Linwood called. We confronted them. My heart jumped. "What happened?" I asked. He exhaled heavily. "Your father was hostile," raised his voice. "Your mother cried the entire time. They denied everything, of course, but they also said something concerning." I clutched the phone. "What did they say?" "They claimed you're harassing them, that you fabricated the entire story for attention, that you're mentally unstable and turning the family against them." My stomach dropped. I had heard those lies before. When I was 17, when I was 19, when I tried to tell someone what they had done. He continued. "They also said, and I quote, 'We're not stopping until our family is whole again.'" My blood went cold. "Detective, what does that mean?" "I think," he said quietly, "that it's time we move you all somewhere safe for the next few days." Emergency protective measures. By evening, the police arranged for a temporary stay in a monitored safe housing apartment, a patrol car to escort us there, security checks at Sophie and Caleb's home, notifications to local hospitals in case my parents attempted another stunt, direct lines to the police if anything happened. It felt surreal, like we were fugitives. But we weren't. We were running from people who were supposed to protect us. People who had abandoned me, lied about me, threatened a child, broken into their own son's home. People who refused to acknowledge the truth. The safe house. The safe apartment wasn't fancy, but it was secure. 3 locks, cameras in the hallway, bulletproof glass windows, a panic button next to the door. It felt like a bunker. Caleb set Evie up with cartoons. Sophie organized their things with trembling hands. I sat on the couch staring at nothing, trying not to cry. I felt responsible. I felt guilty. I felt like I had dragged them into my nightmare. Sophie sat beside me and touched my shoulder gently. "This isn't your fault," she whispered. "They created this, not you." I nodded, but I didn't believe it yet. My mother calls from a new number. At 9:47 p.m., my phone, my new number, the one only 3 people had, rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Aria?" It was my mother. I froze. "How did you get this number?" She sniffled into the phone. "You can block us, you can hide, but we'll always be your family." You can't erase us. My voice turned cold. You took a picture of your granddaughter from someone's yard. That's criminal. It's sick. She went silent. Then she whispered, "You're overreacting. We just wanted to see her." My stomach twisted. You had no right to see anyone. Her voice changed, slow, low, venomous. You owe us, Aria. No, I said firmly. I don't owe you a single thing. She exhaled sharply. This isn't over. I hung up, blocked the number, collapsed into silent tears. The police suddenly show up. At 11:30 p.m., someone knocked on the door. 3 sharp, official-sounding knocks. Caleb grabbed a kitchen knife. I checked the peephole. 2 officers. I opened the door. "Ma'am," one said. "We received a call from a Diane Avery. She said you're suicidal and refusing to let anyone help." I stared at him, stunned. I'm not suicidal, and she's not allowed to contact me. That's why we're here, the other officer said. This smells like a false welfare call. A tactic abusive parents use to get someone institutionalized, to discredit them, to control them. The officers wrote everything down, apologized for the disturbance, and left. When I shut the door, Caleb broke down. Tears, shaking, head in his hands. "I should have protected you," he said. "I should have done something 12 years ago. I let them destroy you. Now they're coming for my daughter. I can't let this happen anymore." Sophie knelt beside him and placed her forehead against his. And in that small, fragile moment, I realized this wasn't just my story anymore. This was theirs too. A family unraveling. A family rebuilding. A family learning what love was supposed to look like. Detective Linwood calls again. Just after midnight, my phone buzzed. I answered quietly. "Miss Avery, I have an update." "What is it?" "We reviewed the motel's external camera footage again." My pulse quickened. "And?" He paused, then said, "Your father was seen leaving the motel at the exact time the photo of the child was taken." My breath caught. "He rented a car under a fake name. We've matched it to a traffic camera near the neighborhood where the photo was taken." My heart pounded so hard, I thought I'd be sick. "And your mother?" I whispered. "She stayed behind. But she made multiple calls to hospitals claiming you were in danger. We have recordings." Sick, twisted, calculated. Then he said the words I'd been hoping to hear. "We're issuing warrants." Detective Linwood's voice echoed in my head long after I hung up. "We're issuing warrants." I sat on the edge of the safe house bed, staring at the wall. My parents, the people who left me at 17, the people who twisted reality around me for years, the people who stalked us, threatened a child, broke into their son's home, were finally facing consequences. But I didn't feel relief. Not immediately. I felt hollow. Because there is a strange pain in realizing the people who created you are capable of destroying you. The arrests. The following afternoon, Linwood called again. "We've detained both of them." I swallowed hard. "What happened?" He exhaled. "We found your father at the Redwood Inn. He resisted arrest, tried to push one of the officers. Your mother was crying, screaming that we were stealing her baby." A bitter irony surged through me. They left me when I was a baby." "Where are they now?" I asked. "In holding. They'll remain there until the bail hearing. We're recommending no bail." My breath left my body in a slow, trembling exhale. They were finally contained, finally unable to hurt us. But the damage had already been done. Calm after storm. Sort of. That night in the safe unit felt strange. Quiet. Too quiet. Caleb dozed on the couch with Evie sleeping on his chest. Sophie folded and refolded the same dish towel over and over just to keep her hands busy. I sat on the floor, legs crossed, staring at the city lights through the bulletproof window. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't scared to breathe. But trauma has a way of making peace feel dangerous. I felt like if I relaxed, even the slightest bit, something worse would happen. Detective Linwood visits in person. The next morning, Detective Linwood came to the safe house. He removed his hat, nodded politely, then sat at our small kitchen table. "You all deserve to hear what's going to happen next." He pulled out a folder. Legal papers, reports, photos. He looked at Caleb first. "We recovered your laptop and several documents from a storage unit your father rented. Your parents were planning something. Extensive." Caleb's jaw clenched. Sophie took his hand. Then Linwood turned to me. "And as for you, Aria, your parents had this." He slid a piece of paper across the table. My breath caught. It was a printed itinerary of my upcoming book tour. Cities, dates, venues, every location I planned to visit in the next 3 months. "How did they get this?" I whispered. "They subscribed to every newsletter under a fake name," Linwood said. "We also found drafts of emails they planned to send to your publishers, claiming you were unstable." I felt sick, twisted, violating, predatory. He continued, "We found photos of you from last month, taken without your knowledge. Grocery store, your apartment lobby, your gym." Sophie gasped. Caleb swore under his breath. I closed my eyes. It was worse than I realized. Much worse. "They weren't just desperate," Linwood said softly. "They were obsessed." The hearing. 2 days later, we appeared in court again, this time for my parents' arraignment. They entered the courtroom in handcuffs. My mother, Diane, looked thin, hollow, almost ghostly. My father, Robert, stared straight ahead, jaw tight, eyes cold. They didn't look at me, or Caleb, or Sophie. Especially not Evie, who stayed home with Rachel. When the judge listed the charges, stalking, harassment, trespassing, making false reports, burning and entering, violating restraining orders, endangering a minor, I felt a wave of surreal disbelief. These were my parents. But they were also strangers. Strangers who had chosen delusion over reality, control over love, possession over family. The judge denied bail. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. The letters from jail. A week passed. Then 2 letters arrived. One for me, one for Caleb. Both from our mother. Mine was 5 pages long. Not an apology, not accountability, just excuses, blame, claims of being a victim, claims that I twisted the narrative, claims that I ruined the family name, claims that I owed them because they gave me life. I didn't finish reading it. I slid it across the table to Whitman, who placed it in the evidence file without comment. Caleb's letter was shorter. It said, "You betrayed us." He tore it in half. The visit from social services. Because a child had been targeted, social services needed to interview Sophie and Caleb. They came to the safe house, checked the environment, observed interactions, reviewed the evidence. The agent, a woman named Ms. Talbot, smiled warmly when she finished. "You're wonderful parents. You have nothing to worry about." Sophie burst into tears of relief. Caleb hugged his daughter, visibly shaking. I excused myself and cried quietly in the bathroom. Not because of sadness, but because I finally saw something beautiful. They broke the cycle. They became the parents we never had. The final confrontation. In court. 6 weeks later, we had the final hearing. This was the sentencing. The end. Caleb and Sophie sat beside me. Detective Linwood behind us. Whitman at the table. My parents entered wearing prison jumpsuits. They finally looked small. Their lawyer spoke, trying to paint them as misguided, stressed, mentally unwell, overwhelmed by financial pressure, desperate to repair the family. But the judge had read the full file. She wasn't moved. My father stared at me with rage, as if I had destroyed his life. My mother didn't look at me at all. Before sentencing, the judge allowed victim statements. Caleb went first. His voice cracked. "They tried to hurt my child. They lied about everything. They've destroyed every chance at a normal relationship." Sophie spoke next. "I want my kids to grow up safe. That's all." Then it was my turn. I stood up slowly. My legs trembled, but my voice did not. I looked at them, really looked at them, and I said, "You left me at 17. You walked away from your own daughter. You watched me drown and pretended I was swimming. And when I built a life without you, you tried to destroy it. You stalked me. You threatened a child. You lied to everyone. You manipulated everyone. You don't get to call yourselves my parents anymore." My mother finally looked at me. Her eyes were empty. My father shook his head like I was the one rewriting history. I continued. "This ends today. I choose peace. I choose safety. I choose a family that loves me, for real this time. And that family doesn't include either of you." When I sat down, my hands were shaking, but I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Strength. The judge nodded firmly. "This court sentences both defendants to 18 months jail time, followed by 5 years probation, mandatory counseling, and a lifetime restraining order protecting Aria, Caleb, Sophie, and their children." It was over. Truly over. The aftermath. We left the courtroom together. Sunlight hit my face. I inhaled deeply. For the first time, the air didn't burn my lungs. Caleb wrapped an arm around me. Not awkward, not forced. Real. "We're okay now," he said softly. Sophie joined us, holding Evie's hand. Then Evie looked up at me with her tiny, innocent eyes and said, "Auntie Aria, can we go get ice cream?" I laughed, actually laughed, and nodded. "Yeah, sweetheart, we can." We spent the afternoon at a small ice cream shop. Evie covered in sprinkles, Sophie smiling, Caleb looking lighter than I'd ever seen him. And for the first time in my life, I had something I never had growing up. A family that stayed. A family that chose me. A family I chose back. Epilogue. 1 year later. Aria speaking. A year later, Here's where life ended up. I cut ties with my parents completely. My podcast became a platform for starving of family trauma. Caleb and Sophie moved closer, 10 minutes away. I babysit Evie twice a week. They named their new baby Lena Aria Avery. I cried for an hour when they told me. Therapy became a weekly commitment. Peace became a habit. Fear faded into something manageable. And my heart finally felt safe. Sometimes healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's quiet mornings holding your niece. Sometimes it's family dinners that don't end in screaming. Sometimes it's laughing on the floor with a baby who trusts you completely. Sometimes it's choosing yourself for the first time in your life. I once believed trauma made me broken, but now I know the truth. It made me unstoppable. And this time, no one is taking my peace away.